Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar, and once again, this is my opinion. Turkey or Fish is a pretty good holiday episode, both for a sitcom and for this show in general. But when it comes to the season 1 holiday episodes, it's not my favorite. That goes to this episode, The Ball. Such a simple name for an episode, but it's so fitting. This episode takes place about a week and a half before Christmas. The episode never properly states that, but given how busy everyone in the episode is, that would be my guess. We first see Ray and Deborah taking part in a drive for the needy, as they put it. This is one of those drives we see yearly. Around where I live, it's usually food drives. That's what I remember from being in school, bringing in the canned goods. But places like Goodwill and other little thrift stores, you'll see them usually doing it for clothes. And that seems to be what they're doing here, mainly for clothes. But there's also some toys, and when Robert gets there, some weights. Because according to Robert, he's now having trouble shampooing. Guess he's going more for size and also not stretching, so that's why he's losing some of that flexibility. That's the importance of stretching, people. And he shows up, and they're talking about the drive for the needy. Ray does a joking line with his humor, like, yeah, me and Deborah, we're... Well, as they're going through this stuff, Robert finds an item that he is very shocked to see in the pile of items that Ray and Deborah are getting rid of for this drive. And it is a ball that Ray has had since he was a kid that was signed by Mickey Mantle. And when Ray sees this, he throws a little hissy fit. It's not overly dramatic, but it's like, whoa, Deborah, what are you doing? And this is one part where you can definitely tell this is early in the show's existence, because I don't see later seasons Deborah being this unenthusiastic and callous when she finds out who signed the ball, because she's like, yeah, so Mickey Mantle signed it. So unapologetic. Later seasons want to be like, oh, I'm sorry, Ray, I didn't know that meant anything to you. Now, of course, this is also the same time where Deborah does stuff like bend a golf club, but that was in retaliation to something that Ray did. Not saying it's right, but it is in retaliation. Whereas this, it's just her grabbing stuff. And she does try to defend herself for why she did it later in the episode, where she mentions, like, I don't remember you ever bringing up that ball, Ray. It's been tucked away. And Ray, argues, it's like, I wasn't hiding it. It was tucked away. I'm just putting it up there. Well, when Ray goes to show off this ball to Andy, Andy's like, oh, it's pretty cool. And Mickey Mantle real signed it. Every party needs a pooper, that's why they invited you. And Andy tells him, yeah, you didn't see that thing on 60 Minutes? A lot of those balls from that era are like 90% fake. The trainers would usually sign them. And of course, Robert, especially season 1 Robert, he's like, oh, this may not be real. Well, it's a shame. He enjoys his rating on his parade. That's another thing that you notice changes as the show goes on. Later season, Robert would probably silently be overjoyed and probably just chuckle a little bit at it, but he wouldn't be so in your face about it, just like with the other comments. But that's season 1 Robert for you. I mean, this is the same Robert that went, happy birthday, at the end of the pilot, and shower's broken, while coming down with wrapped in a towel. Of course, when Ray finds out there's a possibility this ball is fake, he has to go to the source, which of course is old Frank. Poppy. He goes, shows Frank that he found the ball, and Frank is happy. He's like, oh, I remember when I brought this home for you. Went around showing this to the other kids. And of course, Ray finally asked the question he came across the street to ask, and like, so that means it's really real? And Frank is like, who told you that? Without even thinking about it. And Ray's like, you did. Oh yeah. And the thing that really cinches that it was not signed by Mickey Mantle is the line that Frank says next when he's asked a follow-up question. Mickey Mantle never signed this. It's not real. It's a real ball. And this crushes Ray. And this crushed, hurt feeling stays with Ray throughout the rest of the episode until we get the ending revelation. And given that Ray is a sports writer and he's had this ball since childhood, you really understand why he is this way. And as he even tells Deborah that Mickey Mantle was one of the reasons he became a sports writer, especially with what's written on the ball. It's like to Ray with luck. And he's like, for the one moment in my childhood, the greatest player I ever saw was thinking about me. And that really meant something to him. And only now to find out that this is a fake ball, it really crushes him. Which this is the catalyst for Ray's entire subplot in this episode, and that is him not wanting to lie to his children anymore, which, as the other characters around him put it, there's a reason we lie to our children. We all lie. It keeps the family together. Especially when it comes to lying about Santa Claus when they're young. Which, of course, Ray says, I knew about Santa when I was only a couple years older than Allie. which leads to a little weird thing that they never really bring up again in the show, which is Frank wanting to cover sex and Santa at once, which that seems like it'd be an interesting conversation to have together, which is like adds a whole new definition to the phrase ho ho ho. Well, when Allie confronts Ray about a doll from the drive, and they tell her no, you can, and she brings up something that he told her before about Santa bringing all the toys. It's the wording aspect. You know, it's that picking apart wording that only a child could think of. I mean, an adult will pick apart wording too, but the way she does it is in such a way a child would do it. That Ray is like trying to figure out what to do, especially with his new philosophy of not lying to the children, because she straight up asks him about Santa. And he's trying to dance around it at first. Like, I think it comes down to the basic nature of reality, which is a nice diplomatic way to say it, but a child that's very perceptive can kind of take that along with what Ray says next. I don't know how to tell you this before he's interrupted by Deborah. Like, that should be the hint right away that Santa Claus is not real. And of course, the rest of the family, the rest of the episode, is trying to keep the illusion that Santa's real for Allie. And part of it fails because there's no cohesion. Because later on you see Robert show up as Santa, which is a great moment because he's so into the character. He's like, sorry, I'm with a client, and you may address me as Mr. Claus. Ho, 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 ho. And he's getting into it with Allie, and then who should come in? But Frank. Which leads to one of my favorite holy crap moments, literally, of the show, and of the season 2, where it's like, ho, ho, holy crap. And then in character, which I just love this because all the actors, when they're dressed up as Santa, they're really into it, doing that over-the-top voice. You can kind of imagine Santa doing like, Merry Christmas! I'd say that Peter Boyle, it's the most interesting to hear him do it, mainly because this is not the type of thing you would expect him to do, even from his other roles where he's playing someone involved with family. It's just so unlike him, but fitting the character of Frank in a weird way, especially what we find out later. Him and Robert get into the little argument about who's the real Santa, who's the helper, who's the imposter. I bet you can't even name the reindeer. Rudolph, Donner, Blitzen, but those are the main ones. You rotate them so they wear evenly. Cupid and Ajax. Lefty. On Cupid, on Ajax, on Lefty, and more. Just trying to imagine that. And then, of course, they get unmasked. And as Robert says, just for that, no toys. They do manage to cover it up with Allie, so the secret of Santa is safe for now. Of course, it still annoys Ray, considering everything that's going on in this episode. Him wanting to try to not lie to his daughter. Frank being part of this whole little lie and connected with the ball. Ray storms across the street to confront Frank, telling him not to do stuff like that anymore. Frank counters, like, I'm a grandpa. I do stuff like this. I tell stories. It's in the manual. And this is where all the frustration that Ray has had ever since he found out the ball comes out. He's like, just like you told me stories, Dad. He pulls out the ball. He's like, you know how much it meant for me to have a Mickey Mantle ball, and you brought him a fake. It's just a ball to me now. And he puts it down on the counter, and then Frank retorts. It's like, what was I supposed to do? And Frank, you really do feel for him in his confession, because he did want to get Ray an actual Mickey Mantle ball. He went back behind the stadium for several games, but Mickey never came out. They never elaborate on why, but I imagine either Mickey was already gone by the time Frank got back there, or Mickey would wait until all the fans left before he left. Or it could be one of those things like, is that crazy Italian guy out there again? Yeah, Mickey's still out there. Just let me know when he goes, because I'm getting tired of him. I think he's a mob hit. Mickey, you know how these Italians are. They might want me to try to throw a game, and they're sending this guy to rough me up. It kind of looks like you guy that would be like that. Kind of reminds me of that guy from Joe. Well, he tried to do it, and Ray's like, you just got some trainer to sign it. Nope. And in a nice little paternal moment from Frank, we find out that he did not get a trainer to sign the ball. He actually signed it himself. In order to make the illusion last, he actually looked at Mickey Mantle's signature, practiced it, and then once he was sure that he would be able to do a passable forgery, he did that on the ball. And even now he's looking at the ball and like, not a bad job, eh? And with that, you see that he really wanted his son to be overjoyed with getting that ball, that he went that far. And that actually makes the ball mean something to Ray now, because as we find out throughout the show, just like him, Frank was kind of an absentee father. He was there for certain things, he'd make fun of the kids, do some of the punishments, take them for certain events, like when they went across country, went to the games, try to build up the habits, the hobbies with sports and all that. But he was absentee. But then to see that for the stuff he did do, that he went to that extreme, it really means something to Ray, and he decides to keep the ball. Which leads to a moment that was in the script, but before they filmed, Ray was not sure if he thought it would fit it. So he went back and forth with Phil Rosenthal, and Phil eventually said, okay, Ray, here's the thing. I'll leave whether we're going to do it up to you as we play it out on the set. When you're in the moment and you feel it fits, you can do it. If you don't want to do it, we're not going to pressure you. And that moment is when he actually goes over to Frank and kisses his forehead, and you could, from how it's built up, you see that because Frank went that extra mile, this ball does mean something more to him now. It shows that his dad really does love him. And the way that Peter and Ray play off each other in this moment, you really do feel the father-son bond there. The paternal love of a father towards his son, and then vice versa. And Frank is even shocked that Ray does this. He's like, even though you know that ball is a fake, it still means something to you. Yeah. And then without missing a beat, Frank goes, and this Christmas, you're really going to love the Rolex I got you. Which that's a joke I didn't really get that much when I watched this years ago, but watching it now, I'm like, oh, I get it. That's pretty fun. And this carries over into the epilogue, where Ray, following in his brother and father's footsteps, dresses up as Santa on Christmas Eve for Allie and goes talks to her in bed. And it's a nice little tender moment. It's one of those moments that as Allie gets older and she doesn't no longer believes in Santa Claus, but she remembers that memory, she's going to be like, that was Dad. Dad cared about my happiness so much that Christmas with everything going on that he decided to dress up and wish me Merry Christmas on Christmas Eve and pretend to be Santa. Even if she never talks to Ray about it, they'll probably one of her childhood memories of her dad that she looks back years from the end of the show and be like, that was a nice memory. Of course, she talks about it with the twins and be like, Dad didn't do that with us. Yeah, but he went to the blah, blah, blah with you. Like, because I can imagine the twins and Allie talking about all the shenanigans that go on throughout the course of this show. If they don't have to go to therapy, just talking about some of the weird stuff. I mean, even in the show they commented on it in a later season. I forget which twin it is. It says, Daddy's weird. But then they'll also have fond memories like this. And that epilogue is the perfect way to end the show. For some of these episodes, some of the epilogues you could cut out without killing a joke. But this is one of those epilogues that in syndication I'm glad they don't cut out. I don't remember watching this episode in syndication that much, so I don't know what exactly is cut out. I know there's a couple episodes from these seasons where I do remember what they cut out, so I'll be able to comment on it. But this one, I don't remember what they did. But cutting that epilogue, no. The Ball, very fun episode. The whole thing about lying to your kids combined with finding out what Frank did really do add some drama and humor to the episode. And you really do get a very heartfelt moment at the end. Even though we don't see Marie and Deborah for the last part of the episode, we see enough of them in there for their characters, to continue on the arcs we've seen of them thus far. Robert, there in the background, does what he does. Kids, still young, so they're there just to help push the plot forward. And he's nice in his little role. Second episode in a row for him. I think he was better in the previous episode, but it's nice that he actually sets the main plot in motion with just one little tidbit that he mentions. And of course the gag about mistletoe. And it makes me wonder, how exactly did Robert's attempt to break the ice with the woman homicide go?